Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. I hate to begin a talk with a correction of the wonderful introduction, but when you mentioned that I was involved in the Sharansky case, to leave out the name of Professor Erwin Kotler, who was the central figure in getting Natan Sharansky released from prison. And I'm so pleased that Erwin, who was born separated at birth from me and joined at the hip, is here today because we work together on all of our causes, starting with Sharansky, and we will never rest until finally Israel's acceptance is universal. Camera, what a wonderful, wonderful grassroots organization, a bottom-up organization, an organization that starts with people, an organization that has so much energy, and what a marvelous conference this is here today at this wonderful university. So I'm so thrilled to be part of CAMRA. I've been part of CAMRA from the very beginning, and my pride is just unbounded in the work that you all do, and you should be so proud of the efforts you make on behalf of a just cause. CAMRA has only one weapon in its fight against the delegitimation of Israel. Just one weapon. That weapon is truth. That weapon is emet. That weapon is veritas. That is our weapon, and it is the most powerful weapon in the world. The enemies of Israel, those who would delegitimate Israel and discredit the Jewish nation, have many weapons. They have nuclear weapons. They have terrorist threats. They have mendacity. On college campuses, at the UN, in the media, the big lie is the strong weapon. The big lie, coupled with historic amnesia, with selective blindness, and with terminal moral confusion. Let me set out just a couple of the biggest lies that currently dominate the debate on college campuses and in the international community. The first is that Israel is the barrier to peace in the Middle East. How quickly they forget, how easy it is to have amnesia about the history of Israel's efforts to make peace. Going back to 1937 and 1938, when Israel was prepared to accept a sliver of land allocated to it by the Peel Commission, to 1948, when Israel was prepared to accept the two-state solution, to 1967, when the victorious Israelis sat by the phone waiting for some exchange of land for peace, but instead they got Khartoum, the three famous no's: no peace, no recognition, and no negotiations. 1967, we go then to the Oslo Accords. We go after that to 2000, 2001, where Arafat was offered a complete state on 95% of the West Bank, 100% of the Gaza, a rejection which Prince Bandar called a crime against the Palestinian people. Ehud Olmert's offer very few years ago of essentially the same deal, and yet Israel is blamed for being the barrier to peace. Israel is not walking away from these negotiations. Israel will be there to negotiate a real peace with real security if there are partners. But the enemies of Israel and the enemies of truth claim that it's Israel's policies that endanger U.S. troops in Afghanistan and in Iraq. That is probably the most dangerous lie ever told about Israel and its relation to the United States. Look at the facts. What was happening when the planners of 9/11 were going through the steps to try to destroy the World Trade Center? At that very moment in time, Israel was offering the Palestinians a state. Did that stop Osama bin Laden? Of course not. And look what happened when Israel finally had to engage in self-defense, proportional, limited self-defense in Gaza, an unpopular war with many. There was no increase in casualties among American troops in Iraq or Afghanistan. It's a myth. It's a myth, whether it's stated by Vice President Biden or by General Petraeus, who have now fortunately backed away from that statement, or by J Street, or by anyone else who tries to, in some way, blame Israel for American casualties. And why it's so dangerous is if there were a relationship between Israel and American casualties, it wouldn't be Israel's policies, it would be Israel's existence. The radicals who can't tolerate Israel would never stop. If they, in fact, are motivated, it's not by Israel's settlements, it's not by Israel's policies on negotiation, it's by Israel itself. And so the danger of that argument is so patent, but it continues to be made. The third lie that's perpetrated repeatedly is that the Israeli-Palestinian peace, which we all hope for, is the key and the only key to regional peace and disarming Iran. It's just total nonsense. The Palestinians could have given Israel some degree of real peace in 2000 and 2001 had they accepted the offer at Camp David and Taba. Today, the Palestinians can only give Israel a piece of the peace. Peace on the West Bank. They can't give them peace in the north. They can't give them peace in the southeast. They can't give them peace with Iran. Iran is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Iran is the key to why there will still be incredible difficulties in the Middle East, even if, hopefully, Israel and the Palestinians were able to make a peace. The fourth lie is that Israel has one of the worst human rights records in the world. I recently debated Jeremy Ben-Ami of J Street just Thursday night in Stanford, and he made a claim like that, and I challenged him. I said to him, Jeremy, name a single country in the world, any country faced with comparable threats, that has ever had a better human rights record, and he was stifled. He couldn't name another country. Finally, he said, well, what's the difference? Even if Israel is the best country in the world, it's still not good enough. We're talking about Israel now. We're not talking about other countries in the world. And I reminded him of a famous story that took place at Harvard University in the 1920s when President Lowell was trying to impose quotas on the number of Jews who could be admitted to Harvard. And he said, the reason we have to limit Jews is Jews cheat. And Learned Hand, the great judge, responded to him and said, but President Lowell, Christians cheat too. And President Lowell responded, you're changing the subject. We're talking about Jews now. And that's Jeremy Ben-Ami's answer. And that's the answer that everybody gives. We're talking about Israel now. Well, you can't just talk about Israel. You can't just talk about Jews. Everything has to be comparative and contextual. And then there's the canard that Israel commits war crimes. Again, name a country in the world, I challenge. Name a country that has had a better record in preventing civilian casualties over the years than Israel. Nobody can come up with a country that has a better record. Tragically, not even our own country, the United States. And yet, Goldstone had the gall to allege in his report, which I generously sometimes think he probably didn't even read, that not only did Israel engage in war crimes, but the policy of killing civilians was a top-down policy, made at the very top by Tzipi Livni, made at the very top by Ehud Olmert, made at the very top by some of the most progressive Israelis and the Israeli army. A canard, a falsehood, something that lacks any evidence, but something that still has resonance on many college campuses and at the United Nations. And what follows from all of this is, of course, the biggest lie of all, and that is Israel is the only country in the world today that deserves divestment, boycotts, delegitimation, because it is an apartheid regime, and a regime that resembles the regimes that killed so many Jews in the 1930s and the 1940s. By the way, if you want a good summary of these lies, a very good summary of these lies, pick up the brochure that they're giving out outside and read the bibliography. It is a perfect list of the lies that I've just described and worse. And then we get to another lie, and I don't want to get too detailed here because we're not attacking other organizations, but one of the lies that facilitates these lies on college campuses today, tragically, is the lie that J Street is a pro-Israel organization. That has become a tragic, tragic lie on American college campuses. This is an organization that, notwithstanding its denials, facilitated Goldstone's resurrection in Congress by arranging for meetings between Goldstone and members of Congress. This is an organization that has lacked transparency, has lacked emet and veritas, has refused to disclose donor lists, and when donor lists were disclosed, vacillated all around about how it could accept money from a man named George Soros, who once said he would never, ever contribute to any pro-Israel organization, that he is not interested in supporting Israel or anything pro-Israel, and the fact that he and his friends have contributed so much to this organization make very, very clear. Now, what does J Street do? How do they perpetuate the big lie? I wanted to show you very briefly one of their ads. That's one of their most prominent ads on television. You'll notice they have people like Sarah Palin and Rush Limbaugh opposing the two-state solution. And then look who else they put as opposing the two-state solution. See if we can get it up there. If it doesn't work, I'll describe it. Let me tell you what the ad says. Basically, the ad has Rush Limbaugh and Sarah Palin. And they say Sarah Palin favors expansion of the settlements, and Judge Limbaugh and Limbaugh is opposed to the two-state solution. And then it says, and who else is opposed to the two-state solution? Who else is in favor of the increased settlements? It shows a big picture of me moving my lips with words never spoken by me inserted in my mouth. That is their ad. Now, why would they do that? They would do that because people like Erwin Cutler and me and others in this room are J Street's worst nightmare. Why are we their worst nightmare? We oppose the settlements. We are in favor of the two-state solution. We aggressively seek peace, and yet we oppose the agenda of J Street on college and university campuses and in other places because J Street pretends to be a pro-Israel organization and yet promotes the very policies and the very lies that lead to delegitimation. And so it's so important that we realize that here's an organization whose co-founder, the co-founder said that the establishment of Israel in 1948 was, quote, an act that was wrong. How can you be pro-Israel when your co-founder thinks the establishment of Israel was wrong? How can you be pro-Israel when you think Richard Goldstone deserves a hearing in Congress? How can you be pro-Israel when you're prepared to accept funding from a source that has said he would never fund a pro-Israel organization? And so it's so important to fight these falsehoods with truth. J Street has tragically become a cover for many anti-Israel zealots who can proclaim their commitment to Israel.